This video, we're going to go over how to have your metahumans move around the world using AI. And this is useful if you want to build a movie and you want to have a bunch of metahumans moving around to make your world come to life, or you're making a game and you're making a city of some sorts and you want to have characters moving around the world automatically without you having to control them or giving them exactly where they want to go. By the end of this video, you will learn about the AI system in Unreal Engine 5, and you'll be able to utilize it to do many other things as well. So what I have here is the third-person template in Unreal Engine 5. What you're going to need is a metahuman, and you're also going to need a idle and run animation as well for the metahuman. If you don't know how to do that, I do have a video. You just map the idle and run animation from the UE5 mannequin to the metahuman. I'll have a link to the video if you want to watch that first. All right, so the first thing you want to do is we want to create a copy of the metahuman, so we can change it a little bit so that we can assign AI to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to basically duplicate this blueprint of the metahuman, and I'm going to call it BP AI tray. You can name it whatever you want, and then I'm going to move it to my blueprints folder. So I have a copy here. I usually don't touch the actual original copy of the metahuman in case I want to use it for other things as well. So we're going to go ahead and open that, and we want to add AI to this metahuman. So in order to do that, we need it to be a character. We need it to be able to move around and be controlled by something. And in order to do that, and we also need the capsule around it and the forward vector. So the way you do that is you can actually go to class settings, and if you look at the top, the parent class for this class is actor. And in order for us to have all those components for movement and everything, just like a character, we can just change this parent class by changing the actor to the character class. So if you search for character, you'll find it here. So you can just click on that, and you'll see that on the left in the components panel, you'll have the capsule component and then everything else associated with it as well. I'm going to move the whole body and skeleton of the metahuman under the mesh. So I'm just going to click on it and drag it under here just for organization purposes. And then what I want to do is just move the character inside the capsule. So I'm just going to grab the mesh. I'm going to rotate it minus 90 degrees. And then I'm going to bring it down -90 as well. So that way he's inside the capsule exactly, and he's facing the forward vector of the capsule. So now we can actually, now you can see that our character has a character movement component, which is what it allows it to move around the world. And we're going to come back to this a bit later, but you can see that also the parent class is changed to character. So I'm going to compile and save this as well. Now, one thing I want to show you guys, if you actually click on the root component here on the top, and if you search in the details panel for controller, you can see that there's an AI controller class, and this is the class that actually controls this character. And this is the one that we want to actually play around with and change in order for our character to do what we want it to do, which is walking around the world and choosing random locations that are available to it and going towards that. So this is something I want to bring your attention to. So I'm going to bring this up here and dock it there. And now let's actually go to the AI part of things. So in the blueprints folder, I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call it AI. And here is where we're going to do, we're going to have all the necessary things we need for the AI. So the essential thing that we want is a behavior tree. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So if you right click and go to artificial intelligence, you have three things here. We're not going to cover environment query in this video, but we will in a separate video. So let's go to the behavior tree and let's take a look at what that does. So again, we're going to call it BT, and I'm going to call it AI metahuman. So let's go ahead and open this and let's see what this does. So this is really the bread and butter of the AI system in Unreal Engine. This is how we tell the MetaHuman what we want it to do. And the way it works is as follows. So you can click on this root and drag down from it, and you'll see you have three options: a selector, sequence, and simple parallel. Let's talk about the selector first. The selector basically you give you basically choose something and you ask it to do a task for you until it fails. So you can think about it, the way you can think about it is like, let's say you're choosing someone for a position, for a job. You basically select someone and you let them do the work until they fail and you don't want them to do that job anymore, right? So the selector in Unreal Engine is the same thing. You're actually choosing, you're telling it to do a job until it fails. The sequence, however, is a bit different. The sequence, it's basically the name entails what it does. It does a bunch of things in order. So it's not necessarily waiting for it to fail. Whenever the task is finished, it just goes to the next one. So initially, I'm going to choose a selector, and we're going to call this the base, for example. You can actually put a name for this selector. I'm just going to call it base. And what we want to do here, what we want the MetaHuman to do is, one, we want it to first find a valid location around itself, and then we want it to move to that location. So I want it to do these two things in order. I want it to first find a valid location, and then I want it to move to that location. So what you can do, so since we're doing two things in order, I'm going to create a sequence like so, and I'm going to call this a patrol. It's called a patrol sequence because we're literally patrolling between different points. And now we can actually give it the task. So first we want it to find a location around us. So in order to do that, we need to create a new task. As you can see, there are already a bunch of tasks that Unreal Engine supports, which we're going to use, like the move to, but we don't really have a task for finding the nearest location. So in order to do that, we need to actually create a new task. So how we do that is we can just click on the new task icon here, and we can give it a name. And we're going to call it BTT and then find nearest location. Find valid location. And you can give it any name you want. So this creates a task for you, and you can see it's docked up here. But if you actually go into our AI folder, you can see it's also here as well. And we're going to go ahead and add some logic here in a second. But let's go back here into our behavior tree. So now we can actually drag from here and say find BTT find valid location, which is the task that we created. So this is going to find a valid location. And then after it does that, we want it to move to that location. And we can choose the move to task, which is something that Unreal Engine already provides us. And if I click on the move to, you'll see that it has something called the Blackboard key, and this is where the where it will move the object to. So right now it's set to none, so this isn't doing anything. So we need to give it where to move. So essentially in this task here, we need to find a valid location, store it in this thing that's called the Blackboard key, and then the move to would actually move to that specific location. And now what we can do is we can also tell it to, after it moves to this specific location, we can ask it to wait for a certain period of time, just to add some randomness to it, right? So maybe it goes walk towards something and then it idles a little bit, or maybe it yawns, or maybe it sits down for a bit, whatever that you want. And you can actually choose a random time as well, right? So you can say wait 3 seconds with a random deviation of 3 seconds. So that way it'll deviate from the 3 seconds, so it'll seem a bit random to anyone who's looking. And if you look at any games or any cities, most of the time it's like this, and you don't really realize that it's not actually random, right? So this actually helps with that. So what's a Blackboard and what's this key that we are talking about? So you can think of a behavior tree as telling the MetaHuman what to do, but the actual data that we save and everything is placed in a Blackboard. So if you look in the top right here, there's a Blackboard icon here, which is colored out right now. which we can actually create and use. So if we can click on this new Blackboard here, or we can actually come back to the AI folder, right click, go to artificial intelligence and choose Blackboard. So after you do that, we can give it a name and let's call it MetaHuman data. And over here, if you double click on the Blackboard, you'll see that on the left is all the different keys and variables that we want to save. And if you look over here in the behavior tree, you'll notice that if I click on, first of all, I can assign a Blackboard to it. So I can assign the new Blackboard that we just created. And now if we go into the move to, you'll see that in the Blackboard key now, instead of none, there is self actor. So, and if we go back to the Blackboard, or you can right click, you can click on the Blackboard here, you'll see that we have a variable called self actor, which points to the actual actor that has this behavior tree defined on it. So what we want to do is we want to actually create a new key here. And since we're choosing a location around the MetaHuman, I'm going to choose a vector and I'm going to call it patrol location. So this is the location that we want the MetaHuman to move towards. And right now there's no value in it, but we've created the Blackboard key for it. So if I go back to the behavior tree, we want the move to move to the patch patrol location, right? So right now there's nothing inside the patrol location. This is where we're going to do that. So let's go ahead and define this. So let's go to the BTT find valid location. Okay, in order to start this, we need to search for event execute AI. This is what the task that gets executed whenever this task is run. So we're going to choose this one right here to start with. And what we want to do is we want and what controlled pawn means is what is this AI controlling? So in our case, the controlled pawn would be the MetaHuman. So what we want to do is we want to get a random point around the MetaHuman where we can actually walk towards. And there's a function for that in Unreal Engine. So if you right click on the blueprints and search for get random location, you should see get random reachable point in radius. So you want to click that. And over here, it's going to search for a random reachable point around the origin. So we want the origin to be where the MetaHuman is. So if we drag from here and we search for get location, actor location, this will get the location of the MetaHuman and we can assign it to the origin. And now you can define your own radius, how wide you want your search to be. And keep in mind, the bigger this number is, the more calculated, the more expensive of an operation it is. So I'm just going to choose 1,000 for now. And what this is going to do, it's going to basically give us a random point around the MetaHuman with a radius of 1,000. So if the location is valid, we want to save it in the patrol location variable that we've defined in the Blackboard key. So what we're going to do is we're going to come here and we're going to have a branch. We're going to right click and search for branch. And what we're going to do, we're going to say if this is valid, if this was successful and we were able to find the point around the player, and then we want to set the Blackboard variable. And there's a function for that. It's called set Blackboard value, as you can see here. And our specific value is a vector. So we're going to choose set Blackboard value as a vector. And then if it's true, so if we find the point, we're going to set the Blackboard value and we're going to take the key name, we're going to promote it to a variable. And I'm going to call this and make it the same name as your Blackboard key. So we called ours patrol location, and we're going to do this the same. And what you want to do is also click on your variable and also make it an instance editable so we can set it on the behavior tree. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So first of all, make the variable the same name as your key name over here. And then also make sure you click on instance editable here. And then we want to have the random location set as the value. Once we're finished, we're going to finish the task. This lets it know that this is finished. Since we're using a sequence waits for something to finish and then passes it on. So we're going to finish it, and this will be a success. And even if we don't find the point, we're going to still finish the task just so that the behavior tree can move on. So once that's in place, we're going to compile and save. Now, if we go back to the behavior tree, you're going to see here, when you click on BTT find valid location, you're going to see that you have this variable here called patch patrol location, which wasn't here before. And the reason we're able to see it is because over here we created a variable and we made it instance editable. So that way we have access to it in the behavior tree. So over here we can tell it that the variable we wanted to use is patrol location defined in the Blackboard. So now when this task runs, it finds a valid location, it stores it here. Then it finishes, it moves to the move to task. The move to task is going to move our character to whatever is stored in the patrol location on the Blackboard key, and then it's going to wait for 3 plus or minus the standard deviation. Okay, so let's go ahead and actually let's make the standard deviation 1 second because I don't want it to not wait at all. Okay, so now that that's in place, we're almost ready to add it to our MetaHuman. So now we have this behavior tree, but how do we tell our MetaHuman to use this behavior tree? The way you do that is the following. So you do a new blueprint, right-click blueprint class, and you open up the all classes over here at the bottom, and you search for AI controller. So we want to make a new blueprint based on the AI controller because we want to add our own custom logic to it. And I'm going to call it BP MetaHuman. Oops. BP MetaHuman AI controller. Now, if we go ahead and open this, we can tell it to use the behavior tree that we just created. So we're going to go ahead and double click on it. And over here, we're going to go into the event graph. And we're going to say there is an event called onPossess. So go ahead and choose this event. What this means is whenever this controller takes control of the MetaHuman, we want the following logic to be run. We want to run the behavior tree. There's a function for it, run behavior tree. And we're going to choose the behavior tree that we created, which is right here. So what this is saying is whenever this class that we created, whenever it takes control of the MetaHuman to move it around and stuff, it's going to run the following behavior tree on it. We're going to hit compile and save. And now if we go back to our MetaHuman blueprint, if you remember in the details panel, we searched for controller and there was an AI controller class. Now, instead of using the generic AI controller, we're going to use the one we created ourselves, and we called it BP MetaHuman AI controller. So I'm going to choose that and hit compile and save. The last step that we need to do in order for all of this to work is we need to let the AI in Unreal Engine know where we want it to be able to move around, because right now it has no idea. And the way you tell the AI where it is allowed to move is by creating a nav mesh, so which is short for navigation mesh. So you're going to go over here, click on the plus sign, and you want to go to volumes, and there's a nav mesh bounds volume, which is just like this square here that you see, but this square is where right now the AI would be able to understand where it's allowed to move and where it's not allowed to move. So you need to make it encompass the amount of your level where you want the AI to be able to move around. So I'm just going to make it cover this much, just like that. And the way you can check how much it's covering is if you press P, you'll see the green, the parts that are green are where the AI is going to be able to move around. So as you can see, it's going to be able to go up this ramp. It's going to be able to go around here and stuff like that. So when we tell the AI find a random location around the MetaHuman, this is where it's going to be able to these are the points it's going to be able to choose. So it's going to know that it needs to go around this circle, or it can go up the ramp and stuff like that. So once you have that defined, you can press P again to remove this. So now I'm going to move the BP AI tray into the world. And now if I hit play, the MetaHuman should move around the map randomly. So let's see if this is working. So as you can see, he just went there. Now he goes there. And you can see it's completely random and you don't have to do anything else. It's going to move around the map. But right now, obviously, there's no animations associated with it. So it's just like a stick, but we can fix that. As you can see, it's also waiting randomly as well. All right, so as the last step, let's add some walk animation to the MetaHuman as well. So let's go into the animations folder. I have a idle animation and a running animation. So I'm going to make use of those two. So I'm going to right click and create an animation blueprint. And I'm going to choose the MetaHuman base skeleton. And I'm going to call it ABP MetaHuman AI. And I'm going to open this up, and you'll see that right now it's blank and it's not doing anything. So let's go ahead and add a idle to walk blend space. So I'm going to right click, go to animation and choose blend space. And again, it's going to ask for the skeleton. I'm going to choose the MetaHuman base skeleton and I'm going to call it BS idle run. And what a blend space does is it basically, you want it whenever you want to blend between two animations. So you want to go from idle to running, from running to idle, based on a specific variable, for example. This is something that you can use. So what I want to do is I want to tell the MetaHuman, depending on what your speed is, change animation. So if you're not moving, if your speed is 0, then be idle. But if your speed is bigger than 0, then run. So I'm going to just choose a horizontal axis. I'm going to call it speed. I'm going to name it speed, and you can see the bottom here changed to speed. And whenever the speed is 0, I want it to play the idle animation. So I'm going to look in the asset browser, drag the idle animation here. And whenever the speed is 100, I want it to do the running animation. So that way, based on the speed, the MetaHuman will know which animation to play. So I'm going to hit save here. And we're going to go back into the animation blueprint that we created. And I'm going to take this blend space that we created, and I'm going to attach it to the output pose like this. And I'm going to hit compile, and you'll see he immediately goes into idle. So now we just need to let it know what the speed of the MetaHuman is, and based on the speed, it'll know whether it needs to stay idle or run. So in order to do that, we're going to go into the event graph here, and we're going to get the pawn owner. And what this means is whatever owns this animation blueprint, I want to get that. So in our case, it's the MetaHuman character. So what I can do is I can take that and I can cast it to the class that we created, which was BP AI tray, because we know that this is the owner for this animation blueprint. And once we take that, we want to get the movement component. So once we have the movement component, we can store it in a variable, and we're going to promote it to a variable, and we're going to call it movement. And once we do that, once we set the movement component, we want to get the speed. So there is a variable called get velocity, just like this. And we only care about the MetaHuman speed when he's moving in on the horizontal plane, right? We don't care about him jumping up or down so much. So we're going to get the X and Y. We're going to get the vector length xy, and we're going to promote this to a variable, and we're just going to call it speed. Now that we have the speed, we want this to happen every frame that the animation that the game is going on or the movie is going on, because at any second he could be moving or he could be stopping. So we want to do the same thing that we're doing here at every step. So we're going to get the character movement component. We're going to get the velocity just like this, and we can copy paste this right here basically. We want to get the vector and we want to set it. So every frame we want to repeat the same thing, and we're updating the speed. And we can do this the first time when we're initializing the animation. And we also want to make sure that whenever we're updating this, that we first created this. And the way you do that is you can right click on this movement component and you convert it to a validated get. And what this does is it makes sure that this piece of the blueprint is run first before actually updating it. So we do this, we hit compile and save. And we're going to go back to the animation graph for the animation blueprint, and we're going to drag from the speed and attach it here. So what this will do is every frame it's going to update the speed, and then the speed goes into this idle run blend space, and based on the speed it's either idle or it's running. So let's hit compile and save, and let's see if that works. Oh, the last one last thing we need to do is go into the Blueprint AI tray, go onto the body of the MetaHuman, and let's remove this controller on the top. So you'll see that the animation mode is use animation blueprint, and we wanted to use the animation blueprint that we just created, which we called MetaHuman AI. So as soon as you change it, it's going to go into the idle pose, just because right now the speed is 0. I'm going to hit compile, save, and now we're going to go ahead and play and see if it worked. As you can see, now he's playing the running animation. And then when it stands, it goes back to idle. Right now it's a bit snappy, but we can fix a lot of that by some fine tuning. But just like that, you can have characters moving around. You can have them walking instead of running. And you can also make it so that when they're idling like that, maybe sometimes they yawn, or they make some sort of other animation. And you can see this if you have a bunch of these in your world where you have a city or something, it'll really bring it to life. And that's it for this video. I hope it was helpful, and thanks for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments.